So how are you? Good.
Okay, we are live. Mike, are you there?
I am here.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Say it again, Mike.
Can you hear me okay?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Could be louder.
No, sure. And
We'll turn it up just a little bit, just a second.
speak into the microphone.
All right, try it again, Mike.
Am I loud and clear now?
Good enough.
Or,
Okay.
all right. All right. Call tonight's meeting to order. Roll call. Everybody is present. Mike is on Zoom, so we're all here tonight. So we need to go ahead and approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I would like to move, we're gonna talk about policy 505. Graduation requirements. I'd like to move that up right after reports. It's just a discussion item. But that way we can have a discussion why the guidance counselors are still here.
I think we'll lose them if we wait too long.
I do.
You want to take a whole.
Before and after.
Let's after reports.
Okay, make a motion to approve the agenda with discussion item B after reports. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Any conflicts of interest for me? Hearing none, we'll move on to visitors. Is there anybody who would like to address the board that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay. The reports, first up, principal's report, middle school. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So for those that don't know me, you know, probably do, I'm Jessica McLaughlin, I'm the middle school principal. Tonight we're going to look at our building goals and kind of currently where we're at and some of our next steps that we're taking. We have 3 goals in the areas of literacy, math, and behavior. So our goals are to, we base mocks the ISAS scores from, which would be this spring of last year. So we'll look at our scores this year and see where we scored. We are going to use our A reading and our A math scores to be like dipsticks benchmarks and see if we're making progress towards our goals. So hopefully when our ISAS scores come back, we have made our goals. Our goals are that 30% of our students that are non-proficient currently on ISAS will become proficient, and 95% that are proficient stay proficient. That's for both reading and math, and those are the healthy indicators through our ESSA report. Behavior, we had this, the middle school had this behavior goal last year. They did not meet it, so our goal is to meet it this year. Average 7 or fewer major behaviors per week. So looking at literacy, our first A reading score, 63% of our 6th graders were proficient, 67 of our 7th, and 57 of our 8th graders. What that means is for our ISAS scores last year, we need 60 6th graders, 73 7th, and 78 8th graders to stay proficient. And we need 14 6th graders, 14 7th graders, and 11 8th graders to move out of the non-proficient to proficient. So that kind of tells you how many students we're working with and how we're doing. Some of the steps we're doing, we're really focusing on our tier 2 instruction, which is just an extension of the core. We're starting a new demon time process. This is our intervention time. Every 2 weeks, we're switching out those groups. So if students aren't scoring a 2 or 3 on their standard-based grading in the week before we do our 2-week rotation, then they are put into an intervention group. We are having some other content areas, so we teach those groups as well that have an endorsement in that area for reading and literacy. To help make it a whole building initiative instead of just focus on the math and literacy, like all content areas are helping out reach the school, teaching our interventions. So then they're put into this tier 2 intervention time, and then they can test out and reassess to get a 3 internet changes in this grade book for them. We are also starting some tier 3 interventions, working with AEA to come give us some diagnostics for some of our literacy stuff that is more phonics based, because our teachers aren't as aware of that in the middle school level. So we are really giving them resources and how to see what students need interventions and giving them interventions for those to take place. And then we are also utilizing co-teaching in our literacy and math courses. Some of our special education teachers are pushing into literacy and math. We have our interventionists, 6th grade literacy has a full-time interventionist in there with them. 7th grade has a full-time co-teacher, and then 8th grade has 1 and 2 blocks for literacy. Math, same kind of idea of how many students we have to reach and the students to get proficient. And the next steps are those demon time interventions, which is the same for the literacy. So how we work that is students need both. Like 1 week, 1 2-week section is math priority. So with math, they pick their students first. And the second 2 week is then the next week we pick, or 2 weeks we pick is for literacy. And we're putting them in groups of like 10 so that we can do some real interventions. Before last year, demon time was set up. The students were, there was like 20 to 25 in a demon time for 9 weeks. So they never really got out of it. So this is more focused on the skills they're learning in the class that they're not quite there, and put them in intervention for 2 weeks to help get them caught up instead of getting farther behind. And then the math is also doing, trying to get student engagement and up and moving. So if you walk into our math classrooms, there is, it looks like that chart paper, but it's like whiteboard paper all over the room on all walls. So they get kids up moving. And the idea behind that is that you can learn and make mistakes and erase it and start over and try to plan out your ideas. So that's a new technique our math teachers are using. And then behavior, as I said, our goal is 7 or fewer per week. So our 6th grade has 7 referrals for the year so far for majors, 7th grade 31 and 8th grade 25. So we have 63, so we're averaging 6.3 per week, which is still below our goal, so that's good. Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question on out there. When you see 7 referrals to 6, and then you see 7th and 8th with higher numbers, the differentiation there, does that make you wonder if staff is reporting the same for every grade? Because it seems like a huge discrepancy from one grade to the other. So what do you, are the kids that much worse in 7th and 8th grade, or
I would say
is it?
our frequent flyers are more in our 7th and 8th grade. 6th grade, there is a lot of routines in place and stuff to get them like throughout the middle school. So it's a big jump for them. So there's a lot more, I would say, routines in place for them. But we have, Aaron helps with behaviors too, and we have kind of sat down with staff like what to put in a referral and what not to. So a major referral is considered if they, well, we have a chart, but a lot of times if they do something to the effect of like a fight or language that's extremely inappropriate and kicked out of class and sent to the office right away, that's a major referral. Otherwise, we have a process that they go through a think sheet, they get some redirects, and then if they, after the think sheet, if they still can't be redirected, then they're sent to the office and it's a major referral as well. So our next steps for this is, so each major is a phone call home from admin, each minor is a phone call home from staff. We continue to review our expectations each term. We have a PowerPoint or a game that's interactive of what we're expecting of the kids in every location in the building and within school. So students with 3 majors or 6 minors, we're having parent meetings discussing a plan going forward. Our CI3 team looks at that data each month, and then we pull out the kids that have 3 majors or 6 minors, and we're like, okay, do these kids have a plan? What's our next steps? Do we need to contact parents? What do we need to do? So we just did that last week with our students, and so we have something set for each of those students. And then we continue to look at data referrals and making changes as needed. We noticed first term we noticed some of our lunch groupings, like major problems were coming out of a certain lunch. So we decided this term we switched up lunches a little bit, and lunches went a lot better. We're just trying to make changes where we see the need is for behaviors to not occur. We also looked at, we just had a stride party. So for stride party, you had to qualify for meeting school-wide expectations, which is our employability skills, and attendance and behavior referrals. We couldn't have any majors, is that correct? And so Aaron did a good job of pulling all that data, and then we saw there was like 6 kids that didn't qualify in all 3 areas. So we're like, those are the kids that our at-risk teacher is really focusing on this term to try to get them off of at least 1 or 2 of those areas because we feel that's the need. Question.
So this is the first time you've had to stand up here and present. I've asked administrators this in the past, so I'm gonna ask you also. In all your building goals you just set, and the other things you talked about, what is it that you feel like you need additional from the board to help you to meet those goals? If you have anything, this is the time to let us know, because we're all sitting right here.
I don't know if it's directly from the board, but like right now we're really focusing on those interventions. So the resources which we're getting from ABA, and there's like, we just came up today with our tier 3, we gotta buy some materials and stuff like that. So just supporting our teachers with what they're asking for. I mean, the teachers want to do it, they just need resources, they're not sure how to implement it. So that's what we're really trying to focus on.
And do you feel Redwood is giving you that you need to do that?
Yeah, so far. I'm just,
All right.
When you say resources, is that tangible things like items, or is that strategies, technique? What do you mean by?
So like today we were talking about our tier 3 and literacy, and there is a program, I think the elementaries actually use it. And so they're gonna come model it with our staff, but we don't have the material, so the tangibles. Lincoln has a few that they're gonna give us to use for a little bit, so then we're gonna probably purchase it if that's what our teachers want to use for intervention.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep, forgot to ask you their volunteers. Always come in middle school.
I'll just come help from Kathy.
Thank you. I need as much as I can get.
My intervention or my report, I'll just go over real quick. Student data trends, student attendance, we're down just a little bit this month. Last month I think we're at 8 students, we're at 2 students this month. Our student attendance wasn't as good this term as what it had been in the past. We're still up, but we're kind of getting to that point where, when you're at 92 to 95%, that's a pretty good attendance rate. The thing that we're focusing on, we're starting to focus on more with our attendance committee, is the chronic absenteeism side of it. Because we may not have a lot of kids gone in a day, but the kids we have gone, we may have gone multiple times, which is putting them behind. And I have that data that I'm actually going to share out with you, and then I'll also share out district-wide. I'm going to throw it on Facebook, because that's something that we have been talking about a lot. We really are struggling in 3 areas with that. Our students who receive services. EL, or English language learners, and then our free and reduced, group is one's at 44%. They're all at 40 or above, so there's a high percentage of those students who aren't coming here regularly. They're on pace to be chronically absent through the year, you know, and if you miss 18 school days, that's a lot of school to be gone. Now, again, it's really not hard to get to 18. If you just miss 2 days a month, you're at 18 days. So, we need to, our committee is working on creating a plan around trying to really focus on those three groups. To be able to do better outreach to them and get them involved in school and get them to come to school.
What are the reasons for the absences? Is it like illness, lack of transportation?
Some of it just varies, and when we get absences, especially if the parents just call in and say they're sick, then that's an excused absence, but excused absences don't go towards chronic absenteeism. If you're gone, whether it's excused or not. But for the most part, sick. We have some kids that old parents will just tell you they can't get them to come to school. They just don't want to come. So we need to figure out, that's what we're working on trying to figure out as a plan to address those students and get them back in the building. We think our test scores, and if you know me, I like the test scores because it gives us a measuring stick, but it's also just important to have them in the building. They're learning traits by showing up and being at work. You know, I talked to my son about school's his job, you know, and if you have a job, you go to work. So you make sure, and trying to make sure our kids understand that right now school is your job. For some of our kids, it's a second job because we do have several kids, especially at high school level, that work multiple jobs outside of school, which can also come into play with chronic absenteeism. So we're working with our attendance committee on that. I'll keep updating you on where we're at. We've just looked at the data at this last meeting and decided what 3 areas we need to focus on, and then we'll move forward from there. I've contacted all the new board members, Diana Rich, Kara Williams, and Brendan DeLong. Were voted in last night unofficially. We haven't received the canvas yet. But to talk with them, I've already set up board meetings with them. I offered for them to go to IASB, but it's such a quick turnaround. I don't think when I offered, I said, I'm only offering because I don't want you to wonder why I didn't offer. You know, so if you can't make it, don't worry about it. So I don't know if any of them will go. I know one's not going for sure. Next, we do have a work session before the next meeting at 6 o'clock, and that's to finish up our future planning so that we can get our strategic plan finished and get that. I want to work with the AEA and get them to get that in a document that we can share with people, share with our parents, and then put around the community so we have it out there, and this is what we're trying to do. Phase 2, we've run into some issues with phase 2, getting out the bid, putting out the bid. The reason why we're having those issues is we had the issue with the bricks. We also had the issue we've had this last week. We looked at our office, the admin office, our section, and noticed that we didn't have a shower in the nurse's office, and that's something that I just missed, and that's something that we need. So we're changing the plans in there a little bit. And then the other thing we didn't do is we didn't account for AEA accessibility in the music room. So we're building in a ramp for that, so that if someone needs AEA accessibility can get all the way down to the floor and then get back up. So there are things that we've done here late that we've caught before we went out so that we make sure the thing is right. Could we send it out? Could we send it out the next couple weeks? We could, but if you send it out and it's wrong, then change orders come in. Troy, what normally happens with change orders? They mark them up a ton, from 10 to 50%. So we have delayed it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, but at the same time, I would rather us make sure we get the plans out that are correct, so we don't have a bunch of change orders, so we're not paying more for stuff that we need to do anyways. So our timeline is gonna be the week of December 18th, it'll go out. And we talked about turning it back in January 30th or 31st.
Yeah.
So I just wanna make sure you guys know about that. It's, like I say, we just had some stuff, the brick we really didn't see coming. And we were fortunate enough to have Seedorf down here working on some things, and their main boss went over and started looking at the brick, and that's when we decided, like, hey, we really do need to address this now instead of just trying to tuck point here and there. So that's why it's pushed back. And again, I don't like it, but I think it's the best thing for the district, to use the district's money properly. I don't want to waste money on change orders. Brickwork, we already have brickwork ordered for the North Middle School edition. So we talked last time about trying to make all the brick in the building the same. We decided not to do that, and the reason why is we've already ordered, and it's already ready, $140,000 worth of brick for that North edition that closely matches the current middle school building or current high school building, that east wing. So we don't want to waste the $140,000 worth of brick. So we're going to make that east wing, which would be the middle school building, that will all look the same. And then the high school building will all look the same. It's not great, but it's using our money wisely, and it's still, then it does kind of divide the two buildings just by on the outside that looks too. So
just a quick question.
yeah.
Like you said, it's gonna match as close as possible, but if we end up putting new brick on the old part, it's gonna be the exact same brick.
Yes, yeah, it'll be exact same as the north edition.
The
Yeah,
north edition.
it'll be, that will look exactly the same. Right.
Yeah. And yeah, it'll just. Middle school will be one color and high school will be a different color.
Yeah,
It's really easy to tell people which one, where to go.
yeah. High school, or activities wise, girls basketball started this week. Boys basketball and wrestling start next week. Girls wrestling, which we're sharing, actually started last week with Highland, and Mr. Miller has been talking to those girls and said they're enjoying it. One thing we did do is we allowed the girls to take senior pictures in the Washington wrestling singlet, because they have wrestled for Washington, which isn't a big deal for this board, but if you see it out there, that's why. Middle school, junior high boys basketball, 7th grade has started, they're 2-1, and 8th grade girls basketball are 3-0, and junior high wrestling just started this week also. Fall play will start Friday night, 7:30 for Friday and Saturday, and 2:30 on Sunday if you can make it. Fall activities, just to wrap up, 6 different levels of sports finished in the top of the conference this fall. Marching band finished with Division I rating in state. And then you can tap on the 5-year strategic plan to kind of see where we're at. Which you guys have seen it already anyways. The last thing, I didn't want to talk as long as I have, but I also want to allow our guidance counselors to talk on the policy, the financial
Literacy.
There you go, financial literacy policy. I wanted to give them a chance to talk. They've handed you, everyone should have this document, financial skills for smart living, in front of them, and then I'll let them go ahead and talk, ladies, if you want to come up, or sit, whatever you want to do. Come sit, come stand.
So. We were gonna do this.
I want them to be able to present now, and then you can have conversations and ask them right after this.
But we're still doing a curriculum. We're still doing
Yeah.
efficiency scales.
Yeah, yeah.
So what you have in front of you is 3 different documents. One of them, the top 1 page is financial skills for smart living, and that's the syllabus for the personal finance class. So that is from Mr. Mulberg. He's our personal finance teacher. The next page is the student evaluation, and each line here is a credit that's required at WHS. So right now, we have 31 required credits at WHS. Personal finance is toward the bottom. It used to be considered before this year, for the last 3 years, or possibly 4, it was considered a social studies credit, but it no longer is. So we moved it down toward PE. So these are the 31 credits that are required. And then the next document is just our master schedule. And it's so you can look at Mr. Mulberg's schedule, and he is on the 3rd page, they're alphabetical. Just so you can see that he currently teaches 6 sections of personal finance, and that's to make sure that he teaches enough sections for all of the seniors and some of the juniors, and even sophomores and freshmen can take it, because right now it's required. So Mr. Stone asked us to come and talk because you all might be talking about whether you want to continue to require personal finance. It's only been required by the state for 3 or 4 years. I don't know, do you remember? 3 years. So for 3 years. They just dropped that requirement this year, and they dropped it because they want to give school districts more flexibility with their teaching, because there's a teacher shortage, and they just want to give us more flexibility with what we have to offer and what we don't have to offer. So they dropped the requirement. And so that's why you have the ability to drop the requirement for the district if you choose to do so. There are certainly reasons to keep it. It's a fantastic class. It's a great curriculum. It's things that kids need for life. It's information that kids need for life. So, and there are also reasons that you could not make it a requirement any longer, so. I just want to know.
Yeah, and the other item is we have Kirkwood who does teach personal finance out there, so students are allowed to take that class out there as well to meet our graduation requirement within the district, so. They do have an option if they take it high school only for 1 term, or they take it at Kirkwood for 2 terms, but 1 semester.
We've given you a little bit now, we'll let that settle and have Teresa do proficiency scales, and then I'll have you guys come back up here in just a second.
Okay.
Back to it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, ladies.
You bet.
So last month when I was here, we talked about what happens in our PLCs and what happens in our collaborative teams. And one of the things that Mike had talked about and that we were working on was, as a district, we were learning about proficiency scales. And I don't know when or if you were here when we went to standard-based grading, but with standard-based grading, if a 3, that means that a student is proficient. So they understand, know, and are able to do that standard. So what we're currently working on is changing our 3-point scale to a 5-point scale, which is what you have here. The reason that we're going to a 5-point scale is that it allows for us to put in a little bit of growth mindset for students. And then we're also breaking down the standard into levels of what students know and are able to do at each level. So a student can look at this, the parent can look at this, and if a child comes home on their report card and they have a 2, you can look and say, okay, they can explain what the text says, and they can refer to details and examples in a text when explaining it, but they can't do, and you can look at 3 and you can look at 4. So you know exactly what skills they're lacking and what they need to work on. This also guides teachers when they're working with interventions. So Jessica talked about during intervention, if a student isn't getting something in class, that tier 2 intervention can fall within learning more about the core to get to that standard. So that's what this proficiency scale does. And this is the work that teachers are doing right now in their collaborative teams if they're ready for it. So teachers have unpacked standards, we do proficiency scales, we look at common formative assessments, we assess the data, and then we make decisions on that data based on how students are doing. So that's kind of the cycle of what happens within a collaborative team, or should be happening in a collaborative team. I was going to teach you guys by doing the floss and having you create one, but we came upon this the 5-minute video of the difference between a rubric and a proficiency scale. And so it will explain a little bit, hopefully of an understanding of what does it look like? Why are we creating proficiency scales? How does this affect us in the classroom? So we'll watch this 5-minute video and then I'll
Hey, my name is Bill Farrer, and it's time for another 10-minute team tip. So I had a friend ask me recently, hey, Bill, could you make a video describing the difference between a rubric and a proficiency scale? And then could you talk about why a proficiency scale is a valuable tool for a collaborative team? I figured that was a good topic, so we'll go ahead and give it a whirl. Now, when I try to explain the difference between a proficiency scale and a rubric, I oftentimes turn to the thinking of my friend Tom Schimmer, who's a fantastic assessment expert that puts me into the mind. And if you were to ask Tom, between a rubric and a proficiency scale, he would use a pancake metaphor. Tom says that a rubric, generally speaking, is used to grade one individual product that was produced by a student. So it might be an essay that students made. It might be a video that students created. It might be a role play that students engaged in. And on that individual rubric, the different levels of performance almost always start with the completion of a product. So if we were talking about a rubric for a pancake, for the ability to make a pancake, level 1 on the rubric, the lowest level of performance, would still be that you made a successful pancake. It might be a disgusting pancake. You might not actually want to eat it. It could be burnt and gnarled, but you make a pancake. That's level 1 on a rubric. Level 4 on a rubric for successfully making a pancake is the most wonderful stack of pancakes you've ever seen in your life. You didn't just make one pancake, you made multiple pancakes, and they were all perfect and golden brown. And you didn't even stop at just making a pancake, even though that's what the rubric asked you to do. You were told the project was make a pancake. You made 4. And you successfully dressed them. So maybe you put butter on top and you've got maple syrup dripping down the sides and you've added some blueberries or fruit. Do you see how that works? So a rubric is usually used to grade a product, and the levels on the rubric are with you created something. It may not be perfect, it may not be wonderful, it may not reflect mastery, but you made a product that you were asked to make. So in this case, a terrible pancake, but still a pancake. Now on a proficiency scale, things are a little bit different. A proficiency scale generally describes a continuum of progress towards mastery. So it details from the beginning the individual steps that you have to take in order to move forward and be able to create whatever it is that you're being asked to create to reach grade level mastery. So that term, a continuum of learning, is worth thinking about. What that means is that on a proficiency scale, level 1 for making a pancake, in Tom's analogy, would be you successfully gathered the materials, right? You've got to begin by finding your eggs and finding your butter and finding your flour. That's step 1. Step 2 might be you've got to mix those ingredients together in the right order. Step 3 might be you've got to get those ingredients on the stove in a pan and cook them at the right length of time in order to produce your pancake. And step 4 is, then you can take it further. You can work beyond mastery by dressing your pancakes or making multiple pancakes. Do you see the difference there? Level 1 on a rubric for a pancake is you successfully made a pancake even if it's something that nobody wants to eat. Level 1 on a proficiency scale is you got to gather the materials. The difference is we're trying to describe on a proficiency scale the steps that someone takes in order to move forward towards mastery. Think of it as a continuum of learning. Now, don't get me wrong.
So the proficiency skills that the teachers are creating is that continuum of learning so that they know exactly where students are in their learning, and they know exactly where to intervene to get students to be where they need to get to that mastery level. So this is a lot of the work when we have those early outs, when the teachers have CT time. This is part of the process of the work that they do within those. So hope that clarifies even a little bit more about what it looks like for grades, for scores. Especially in our K-8 because we are standards-based grading. Question.
Who gets to eat the pancake?
I'm not even good.
So just when we're going from 3 to 5, I guess my question is, when we're talking to parents, we have 5, we have A, B, C, D, F. Why don't we just, wouldn't it be easier for them?
This is a level of learning, so it doesn't correlate. You can correlate it to a grade at upper levels, but if we cross into that, we're saying that an F is, in this, it would be, there's not enough evidence. We're looking for evidence of learning. So this is evidence of learning, not just ABC. This shows us, this is exactly where students are. We want everyone to be at the proficient level.
So is this more qualitative versus the ABC quantitative?
Adam, help me.
Well, for one, like, if you look at like an A, ours, on that scale, a 3 is actually,
Yeah.
you've mastered the standard, you're where you need to be. That's really like an A, whereas the one above is like you went above and beyond, so you can't always equate each one of these lines to a letter grade, because they're just not the same.
So you just explained it to us. You just explained it to us. And I understand what you're saying, but I have a really hard time believing every parent is going to understand what you're saying.
Those are conversations that the instructional coaches and I have had. I don't think we've had it in DLT yet, but we're gonna have to have parent meetings. We're gonna have to have conversations. It's just like when we went to standards-based grading and learning and things like that. So that's all gonna have to happen at some point in time as we transition.
You might get a question too, like why 0.5s? Why are these like 0.5s in the middle? And one thing to remind if a parent asks you that, so if a student's at a 2, some of our standards, you'd have to do 10 to 15 different things to get to a 3. So a student, that's a long time to work before you just sit at the same level. So being able to have a little bit of a ladder for a student to be like, I am making progress, I'm now to a 2.5. Because some of them, it takes a long time, maybe the whole school year to get from that one to the next one. So it gives a couple more ladders to show growth for students. So in case you get that question about the 0.5s too.
So we're gonna give it subject matter. How many each?
Depends on how many standards you have. So in ELA, they have quite a few standards. So whatever is the third step thing that goes on the report card, I'll do a proficiency scale for. They've already started the work at Lincoln and Stewart, and they've made some good progress because we have our standards unpacked. So it's, we put that standard in 3 and then you look at those categories and look at the information. We have them to, there's some districts that have already done this work, and so we've said use them, look at them, because every time that we go through a unit, we can revamp and say, you know, oh, we really think that this should be, we need to change this, or we need to look at this. So as we go through this, we'll continue to hone it and tweak it as we go. Unit by unit as we create these and use them.
What's the timeline to put this into play?
So that's another conversation that we need to continue to have. So we have it in our 5-year strategic plan, we say that, you know, we wanted to build our professional learning communities. So we need to learn everything that's in that. So we're gonna start creating, we could potentially start using them next year and using a combo of both. So we could still have teachers that still just have the 3 point, but we have some that would go to this, and that would be a conversation we'd have to have with parents, like, hey, here's where we are, and we have to communicate which ones are unpacked. If we decided to go to that 5 point for visual cards or something for next year. But those are conversations, we're still in the phases of having conversations about what that looks like. But this isn't something that'll happen, this won't be done like this. We've been unpacking standards for at least 8 years. It's time to move on and get, you know, start working on these, and then we're gonna do a lot of assessments. And kind of, again, we're doing it as a district so that when, let's say 3rd grade's ahead and heck, they're rocking these out, but 1st grade still doesn't have proficiency scales yet. They can pick up on that learning because as a district, we have the learning, and then they have people that can teach them. And then, as we get to common formative assessments, we'll do that as district learning. And then when you're to that part, then people can pick that up. Because teams are at very different places. And elementary has a lot more to do than, a lot more subject areas. So you've got a team that's doing social studies and, ELA and math and science, whereas at the middle school, they have more content areas that they're teaching similar things, I guess. Not all the subjects.
I think it's important, you said that Stuart and Lincoln are kind of ahead. Some of that is because of, help me remember, but
Differentiating capability.
yes, that really 5 years ago, I think my first year here, that came into play, and the elementaries had to do something, whereas the middle schools were, the middle school and high school didn't. So it really kind of put us behind, and we put those groups behind. So we are teaching them, they're learning, but they are a little behind where the elementaries are at, because of, it's not because of their lack of wanting to do. It's because of just the focus started earlier in the interviews.
Well, kudos to the middle school, like social studies, pretty much has theirs done. I mean, they've all been working on them in some form, or they have rubrics that they're gonna, you can change a rubric over into this. So pretty easy in some of them, so they are further ahead than being kind of form, so.
So how often, regardless of whether it's a 3 or 4 or 5 point scale?
Yep.
How often is the student given feedback on their proficiency and their progress?
So if you're teaching a unit and you are teaching 2 standards in that unit, they should be getting feedback as they're progressing through the learning as they go. So when that unit's over, they might do a summative, they might know where they are, that could be a final, but then if that cycles back in later, then they can reassess on that. I think what Jessica was talking about at the middle school is that if they aren't proficient, and then when they go to intervention for that tier 2 time, they're getting that extra learning, so they can move out of the way and they can move out of that. So just depending on your intervention time, but within the classroom, you might finish a unit and that might be the only time that that standard is touched on for a while. You might come back to that standard later, but you always would come back in that intervention to reteach that. Because the goal isn't that everyone would get here. Sometimes it takes years. And then at the middle school and the high school level, some standards are all taught in one class. So for example, in algebra, there's one part of the standard that's taught in algebra 1, but the second part isn't taught until algebra 2. And so you don't even teach the whole standard within a proficiency scale. So when you look at it, you might only be able to get a 2 until you take that second course. And that's okay. And those are things that we're working through. We're working through the AEA with that as well. I think, Stacy did a really good job, our AEA consultant, in having that conversation with us.
So trying to look at this from like previous history as letter grades and versus now in terms of the student or parent. And let's say past history, you got a D on a test, you got an A, whatever. So I get this, but is this something that this specific form the student is seeing? Like how is that specifically?
Students will know what this is, parents can see it. Our ultimate goal is to have our proficiency scales on our website, so you can click on it as a parent and you can progress their ability throughout K-12. And know what students should know and be able to do.
So they're gonna see this. So if they're in 8th grade math, they're gonna see this how many times? Or the 3-point scale.
If they're teaching it, they should see it at the start of whatever it is that they're teaching in that unit,
several
and be a part of it. But again, we're not there yet, we're
Right,
creating
right,
them,
right.
but that would be the ultimate goal, is that students know exactly what, oh, I still got it. I'm only at a 2, this is what I need to do to get to a 3, and so how do I?
I'm halfway through the term,
Yep. What does that look like for me?
whereas the parent is getting that feedback just at parent teacher conferences.
Yeah, I would
It
say,
would be like previous.
One quick question I just thought of. Extracurriculars. They have to attain a certain grade, or they don't get to participate. What decides who and what decides where they're at on here to where they're failing, to where they don't, you
I don't know how they do that. How they do that at the middle.
It won't affect high school at all, because we'll still be on the 4-point grading. The ABCD will still be on the grade scale at this time.
So how do you do it?
So with the middle school, it's based off of our employability scores. And so they have the standard for their content standard, but then they are assessed based off of their employability. And that's work completion, working with others, and academic conduct. And so those 3 things are what determines eligibility for then the athletics piece at the middle school level. So if they are at a 1 on employability, which is work completion, but they're not completing their work and they have a 1 there, then that would mean that they would be sitting out. Which would be very similar to not completing your work in a graded setting, like in the high school. You don't turn in your work, you're failing that class. Therefore, you're gonna be sitting out there.
That scale's not changing then, right?
That scale is not changing.
Can you repeat those 3 things? The work completion, what was it, 3?
There's 3 things. 3 things.
3 things.
Work completion, working with others, and academic content.
We hope that this starts to bring clarity of the work that we're doing in the district, so that you kind of know, like, as we go. What students are learning, what teachers are doing on those early out days, why we need time, to work, things like that, so that you understand that this is the work that we do. And what we focus on for our students.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, now
Done with reports.
jump back to 505.5. So what questions do you guys have? What thoughts? You have a little time to think about it as we're talking.
I've had a lot of feedback on this, to be honest. And maybe 90% of the people I talk to thinks it should stay as a graduation. Well, I would like to hear your two thoughts on that.
Well, I've had 3 children go through the system as well, and before we had a class, there was an online program that the students did on their own that was required to meet the state requirement. And I had 2 of my boys go through that and say they didn't learn a lick. And one boy went through a class and has felt like they've had more knowledge about money, college, interest rates, all those things that are personal skills that my other 2 said, I wish I would have known. So in my opinion, as a parent, I would say this is one of the most important classes we teach to help young people prepare for life after high school.
Does it make it very difficult to get kids to other classes they need, having this be there? Or is it not a big issue?
It's not a big issue,
Not when we offer 6 sections of it.
right? Because a teacher will teach 12 sections of classes. So Mr. Mulford has half of his school year is personal finance. He's got 6 sections of that. And I agree that this is a class that students need. I think they need this information. And I'm on the fence about it. And the only thing that pushes me over the fence to say that we could potentially not make it a requirement is the same reason that the state dropped the requirement. And that is because it's just to give more flexibility. It's just one less requirement that a student has to meet in order to graduate. Because we're trying to work toward more students graduating, 100% of our students graduating. So that's the only thing that pushes me over the fence to say, as much as I think our students do need this information, it would be okay to not have this requirement.
I sit on the fence, I see both sides of it. One side I see that, what if you have kids that families talk to them about compounding interest, they talk to them, they teach them this, they teach them how to do a personal checkbook, they teach them what credit cards can do, positive compounding interest, negative compounding interest. You're gonna make that kid sit in a class that he may know 90% of the class already for 2 hours. The other thing it can do is Mr. Mulford teaches half of the school year teaching this, whereas that takes away from different course offerings we may be able to offer our kids to give them the ability to see other things, to experience other experiences besides this. So to me, it's a double-edged sword
For sure.
for that reason. Like, it teaches some amazing things. I think it's good for our kids, but at the same time, it limits what we're able to offer our students, and some students may already have the knowledge that's required. So like I say, I have 50-50. That's where it's challenging.
Is there any, you mentioned the Kirkwood alternative class also. Is there any, if it became an issue where it was an issue of too much of Mr. Mulford's time was doing his personal finance, that we could have more kids take it through Kirkwood than we currently do? Or is that not?
That would be supplanting. And so we can't depend on Kirkwood to teach enough sections of what we need to offer to students. We can't supplant. We can say, we have enough sections already for everyone to take personal finance in high school. And if you're choosing to take it at Kirkwood, that's up to you. So we get what you're saying, Troy, and we can't supplant. We can't depend on Kirkwood to have enough seats for us.
So I definitely have an opinion about this. I'm not on the fence. Along with you, Troy, I've talked with different people, and it's fairly clear cut with different people that obviously everybody in this world has to deal with money. And we talked about how we want to get kids to graduate, but it doesn't do us any good if we get our kids to graduate and then they don't know how to be out in the world. So our goal as a board is to, or as a district, is to prepare our students for the world. And that includes a financial literacy class. And to your point, Mr. Stone, my girls went through this class also, and we do teach all that financial stuff at home. Bailey still came home and she said, oh my gosh, I did not know this. I learned this today. And I'm like,
Get your.
because, yeah, you know, we didn't teach them everything. So she still learned stuff in that class. She loved that class, but, it's clear cut. I mean, since we have a great teacher that can teach the class, it'd be different if we didn't, when we were struggling to find somebody. But we have a great teacher that teaches a class, the kids enjoy it, they learn a lot. I don't know why we would drop the requirement. I'm not seeing the benefit for our district at least.
I agree.
Well, the one thing about this whole thing is that, and I'm talking from experience, that you put the kids out there and learn this is the most important thing of their life. The only thing I have to say is on his list of things to do, get ready for retirement should be first on the list. Because you have to look at that to see how you're going to live when you're done with your work career. So to me, like you said, it's a no-brainer. This needs to be a requirement. If anybody gets anything out of it, it's more than nothing. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's more than they had when they started. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a discussion item for today, and I think it's pretty clear where most of us stand.
So I do have a question. So if we were to not require this, what percentage of students do you think would still take the class or receive information in other classes that this class teaches? Do you have a guess?
We have another math class called business math. It was called consumer math. That has personal finance information in it. So there would be seniors who can choose to take that as their third math credit. So those seniors, when they become seniors, could take it. And I think a lot of students would still choose it as an elective. But maybe not enough. I mean, you're right. Everybody needs this information. It's only been a requirement for 3 years. The state required it for 3 years. So, why wasn't it even a requirement before that? This is information that students need. I think students would still choose to take it. But it might not be 100%.
I feel like if we take the requirements away, the kids that need it the most would be the ones that wouldn't take
Would
it.
choose not to take it.
They do,
I would agree with you.
And exactly, Sonia, because some of those students are the ones that are struggling to get their core classes done and get the requirements done to graduate.
I'm 100% for it. Keep it. But thank you for sharing all this information. Appreciate it.
We are already reading that, and it sounds like we keep it the same. We'll have the second reading at the next meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Good you got to see me again.
We're so lucky. Hey, B, that's yours. And that's why archery starts next week as well. 120 hours worked out.
Really?
124 through 12.
Is that up or down? That seems.
What she's saying, Willie, is you forgot it on this.
I did.
I don't know. How to do that.
I need to talk with Mr. Board policies are next one. Second reading, policy primers is, we went through the first reading last month. Yep.
Back to consent items.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I do it in the past meeting.
Yeah, trying to get it. We haven't had one of those for a long time, so
I'll approve consent items as presented.
not that we need.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve consent items as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, on to action items.
I think Mike's eye was in agreed.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah. Second reading, action item A, board policy, second reading policy primers.
We talked through these last time. My recommendation would be to waive the third reading and approve the second reading of the policies.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the second reading and, take and, suspend the third reading of the policy primers.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve, board policy, second reading and policy primers and waive the third reading. Was there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, on to action item C, Grantwood AEA 10 board member ballot.
Are we jumping B?
Didn't we do B? Oh, no. Yeah, we did. We got B. So plan specification and budget estimate for phase 2 of the middle school, high school building project.
Is it because I didn't have my coat on? You didn't see it.
You did have your blinky bright coat.
So I brought with me today a set of plans for the phase 2 project, and earlier I passed out a budget for phase 2 as well. If you recall, after the success of the phase 1 bids, we had some funds that we were able to reallocate over to phase 2, and we had set aside $5.75 million for phase 2 construction. And so we have catered this project to so that the base bid gets as close to that 5.75 mark. And we have broken the project down into 13 bid packages as listed here. In addition, we also are going to continue the agreement with Train Equipment for them to provide the equipment and the controls direct with the district, similar to what we have done for the last 3 projects here. So base bid, high level, renovations to the classroom wing, which includes moving some walls around, freshening up the paint, abating pretty much all of the asbestos, actually all of the asbestos in the classroom wing, redoing flooring, renovating the restrooms, the administrative addition and renovation, renovating the kitchen, so that's a serving kitchen, converting the lock pot area to cafeteria. A lot of things that I think we've talked about before, and that's primarily in the base bid. The one slight change, and it's down into the alternates, is we've changed the base bid for the locker rooms. And the base bid is going to be making them ADA accessible. So I guess I'll just jump into the alternates here and elaborate on the locker rooms here in a bit. Alternates for the project that we've set aside include sidewalk replacement, tile on the lunchroom walls. So you've got a mosaic finish on a lot of the walls in that lunchroom currently, and the base bid is just going to be putting a drywall coat over top of it, just to kind of freshen that up a little bit. And so this alternate would be to spruce it up a step further by putting tile over that, just to, it's kind of a little more durable finish and would look a little bit nicer. Alternate 3 is to replace all of the doors that aren't already being completely replaced for other reasons, but to replace all of the doors in the existing frames that are to remain. So there's some doors that are in some poor condition throughout that wing, and so this would replace all of those doors. Then alternate 4 is kind of the deluxe version of that. Replace classroom frames and frames, I should say frames and doors. So replace doors in all remaining existing frames. So the frames going into the classrooms will be completely removed and replaced with new doors, and then all other doors. So we're talking like the kitchen area, some of your closets, storage rooms, areas like that, those would still get their door replacement. So you would not end up accepting both alternates 3 and 4, because 4 is kind of the deluxe version of alternate 3.
If we do alternate 3, we did talk about the frame would still be painted.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be just looking like the old frame, they would be sanded and painted.
little TLC on them. Alternate 5 is the AV system within the gym, which would be a similar AV system that we've got planned for the gym that's under construction now. Alternate 6 is the only deduct alternate on this. The base bid will include a larger canopy extension, a larger canopy onto the administrative addition to serve as a shelter for students, you know, the weather, if it's raining out or something, so kind of a gathering shelter next to the entrance there. Alternate 7 is renovations to the locker room. So this is kind of like a deluxe, I guess, of the locker room renovation. So again, base bid would be to make it ADA accessible, reconfigure some of our entrances into that space, and then our toilet partitions and some of our toilets, reconfiguring it slightly so that we have ADA access within those spaces. But what the alternate here, the locker room renovation number, that will demolish the ceilings in that space, that will remove the asbestos that's above the ceiling on the pipes as well as the floors. We are reconfiguring the showers, reconfiguring the toilet fixtures, and we are also replacing the sanitary, and I should have mentioned that in the base bid. Your restrooms and a lot of the plumbing fixtures throughout the wing, we're going to redo the waste lines. In the past, there's been some problems that Bill has had to work through in getting a lot of those waste lines cleaned out. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tearing up a lot of the floor slabs, completely replacing the sanitary of the areas that we're touching here that we're affecting, and routing a lot of that waste through your utility tunnels that's around that wing. And so in the locker room renovation portion, we're also replacing the sanitary for those locker rooms, but only in this alternate, not as part of the base bid. And so then we'd also be putting in epoxy floors in that space. Alternate 8 is boiler room plaster abatement and equipment demolition. So this is kind of a 2-part alternate, I guess. A lot of your asbestos abatement, the asbestos abatement bid will have its own kind of series of alternates, which get kind of confusing, but part of the asbestos abatement alternate would be demolishing the plaster ceiling that's above there, but we wouldn't accept that alternate if we don't accept demolition of all the equipment within that equipment room or within that boiler room. So you're not going to accept the abatement unless that's going to get out of the way. There's too much stuff in the road. So that's to basically clear out that space and take care of our asbestos problem in there. Then alternate number 9 is the gym stucco repair and brick seal coat. So last meeting, we talked about the concerns that were brought up with water infiltration through our cladding. And we discussed that we are not interested in replacing the brick on the gym, that there's the idea of we could do a metal cladding system in the future to maybe try to get that to look more like the other gyms. But to extend the life of the building that you've got now, that seal coat, that the seal coat will help protect that brick for a few more years. And then the stucco band, just kind of putting a fresh coat over that and repainting it to kind of help with the water infiltration that's going on up there. So that would be another alternate. So you'll notice that a handful of these alternates have a double asterisk beside them. And the intent behind that is if these weren't accepted in the phase 2 bid awarding, it's not overly difficult for the district to pursue those on their own without a whole lot of complication, I guess. You know, the seal coating and the stucco repair is not the difficult task. The boiler room plaster and the equipment demolition easy to tackle separately. So that's kind of just a highlight there because there's quite a bit of alternates here. They sum up to quite a bit of money, and I guess it's just some reassurance that if you aren't able to pick up all these alternates, it's not like you can't tackle these with relative ease in the future.
How many questions do you want at a time?
1.
All right. So I just, a lot of different things. Bid package number 2, concrete foundation, floors and pavement. That's all within the building, correct? So would that have to do with this replacing the sanitary? Is that what most of that is?
Not most of it, but there is a good chunk of that. So, well, you've got the admin addition, so you've got some foundations that are gonna be added for that expansion, but in your fitness area, which is where the stage currently is, we're gonna be putting in a mezzanine up there for some additional storage. That mezzanine is gonna require structural steel, metal deck system, and then there's gonna be a suspended floor slab up there. But in addition to that, in order to support that steel, we're gonna have to be doing some demolition of the floor slabs that are beneath that stage, in order to get some foundations to support that steel. But there is a fair amount of concrete replacement work in those restrooms. There's a good amount, and it's just kind of awkward spaces, so.
Yeah, so that brings me to my second question. So that structural steel and erection is for that mezzanine, then?
And the admin addition. And we've got some rooftop equipment that we're gonna have to reinforce the joists for.
Okay. Make sure I get that, fast glazing, roof sheet metal. So then I'm down to bid package 10, plumbing, I understand, and HVAC. Didn't we just redo all the HVAC in that whole wing?
A good chunk of it, yeah. So the admin addition is gonna get another R2U unit to, actually, we did not improve the administrative space with the new HVAC system, even though we put 2 rooftop units right on top of them. Those cater to the future cafeteria area. We will have a new rooftop unit with some VAVs set up within the plenum space. The rooftop unit's obviously on the roof, but then some VAVs so that all of your nurse's office, your conference room, your principal's offices, that's what's gonna feed those spaces. The kitchen is gonna get a new makeup area unit. The choir room is actually gonna get 2 RTUs put onto it. We did not touch I don't think we touched the choir room at all, actually, with the exception of a closet, that we replaced the ceiling in, but that's gonna get 2 new rooftop units as well. So there is a little bit of HVAC, and then there's kind of some small work that's gonna be needed within the classroom. So we're gonna be moving walls, 5 feet one direction. So we're gonna be messing around with diffusers and doing just minor MEP work to accommodate those ceiling changes and the wall changes.
Okay.
So there is that, but the plumbing is, there's gonna be a good chunk of plumbing being done. That sanitary, getting into that tunnel reroute and that there's a good amount of work to be done there. But I think there's some wisdom here that the district has brought with replacing that sanitary. So at one time, we weren't gonna touch that. We were just gonna leave those bathrooms in. I think it's a very smart decision.
So, okay, I'm partway there. You're doing pretty good so far. So bid package 11, electrical, communications and technology. Okay, so then if we look down below, we have communications technology, which we have 200,000 there. And then we have that 356,000 up there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we did a lot of recabling and wire technology work in the other package, correct?
In last summer's project, yeah. And to kind of help with that, this also includes the phase 1 design development fees, the IT equipment needed for phase 1. So a lot of these items down here below also share with phase 1. So there's kind of a little bit of a teeter-totters.
I understand. So let's go back to bid package 11 then. So wouldn't a lot of that communications technology stuff been taken care of?
A lot of it has, yep.
So is it safe to say most of that figure up there is electrical then?
There's a fair amount of electrical, there's a fair amount of electrical, fire alarm that's still gotta get done in some of the spaces that we didn't touch. Yeah, just new lighting, the administrative space, even though we did quite a bit of work in there, it's all getting redone. But yeah, we did do quite a bit of work last summer, but there's still more work to be done. And even in the walls that we're moving, basically you're scrapping all the power that's in there now. You're gonna have to rerun new power to those locations, and there's just enough of the little things within the areas that we've already touched that out. But yeah, the remaining of this electrical would be like for your gym, we're gonna be redoing all the electrical in the gym, the staging area. There's a good amount of work left.
So that's. I'm sure other people have questions, so if they want to ask me.
Sure, keep rolling.
Alternate, I'm down to alternates now.
All right.
Sidewalk replacement. Give
Yes.
us an idea of where, how much.
It's about 2,000 square feet worth. So, this is one of those things where we kind of pick and choose it exactly how much we want to do, but there's a section to the north. Well, on the east side of the building as you're running north, that's
all that.
That could use a little bit of help. And so it's intended to kind of pick up some of that area. And the 2,000 square feet is just kind of figure out which ones that we want to tackle the most, but it's intended for that space.
Besides that east side, was there any other areas that are included in that? That would be about it, wouldn't it?
That would be about it.
So.
For that one.
And a lot of it is bad. So, okay, so on to, I get the doors and the frames and et cetera. Canopy extension, I wanted to ask one thing on that. You talked about the administration canopy, but on the original drawing, and when we talked about this phase 2, there was gonna be a canopy on the other end.
That's the canopy on the
Okay,
north end,
so that's in the base then?
where the parent drop off is, that should be in phase 1.
You're talking about off the Northwest Drive.
Right.
That is already, that's
Part of phase 1?
That's it.
All right, so, the boiler room, plaster abatement, and equipment demolition, I get that. How many old boilers do we have in there?
There's
Two
boilers. There's just
and all the.
2 boilers, water, 2 boilers,
Water tank, piping,
yeah.
controls.
There's actually quite a bit of stuff you've got a lot of equipment that's gonna get abandoned because we're relieving ourselves of all the boiler systems. So it's gonna clean up one wall and actually that also includes, it's got a mold window in there. We're gonna be yanking out a mold window. That's got some asbestos sealant. Get rid of that while we're at it.
Okay, so my very last one, locker room renovations, does not include new lockers, so what? You kind of explained what was in the base to make them ADA accessible. And that would be the base, strictly just that, make it ADA accessible.
Period, yeah.
This would cover everything else. Is there anything else? So I guess my first question is, if by chance we spend $335,000 more on locker rooms than the base, why wouldn't we put new lockers?
Yeah, let me back up to the base again. That also includes sprinkler systems. So right now, I don't think we're gonna be able to cherry pick and not put a sprinkler in there. So we're probably not gonna be the way that we want it to be, because I think if we're gonna be forced to have it, we're gonna be forced to make that surface mount, unfortunately, because once you start tearing away that plaster ceiling, you're gonna be uncovering some things about that we don't want to get into. So, but I don't think the state's gonna let us not touch that. So anyways, the only reason why that number the only reason why the lockers aren't currently in it is because we really didn't decide that it should be a part of that until recently, and I haven't put an estimate on replacing those lockers. That could be worked into this, that number does not reflect new lockers.
So this 300 and some thousand would it be safe to say that is concrete removal, replacement, fixtures and plumbing and electrical?
And ceilings and abatement, the flooring, you'd have an epoxy flooring. So yeah, it's gonna be reconfiguring of a lot of your plumbing systems in there, making them, they're just kind of the old school not personalized showers, so, but yeah, it's basically refreshing that whole space. And taking care of your waste, like your sanitary needs at the same time.
Something we could do, and it just dawned on me now, we have locker pod lockers that
Could be reversed.
could possibly be repurposed. Bringing them out from the wall, you wouldn't have anything laying against the wall, but you could run sections out, meaning that.
That was one thing that was mentioned, the PE teacher brought that up, that at the bare minimum, maybe that's our backup option, but.
Cause those are all really good lockers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't we have concrete pads in there though?
I was just thinking about that, I don't know about, so yeah, you've got a concrete pad, if those lockers can fit back to back on those same pads, or if we'd have to yank those out and for newer build renovations up or something, but yeah, that's an idea, we should try and take a tape measure to those to see if it'd be a good fit for it.
The other option we probably would want to consider too is whether that's part of the project, as far as hanging lockers, or if that's something we go out and do.
right.
Definitely.
Well, I guess. I understand there's only so much money, but at some point, towards the end of this second phase. People are gonna get really fed up with having little things thrown over there, so I wouldn't like to keep. But we should be done at some. So. I think tomorrow I can. Look anybody in the eye and tell them I asked another question.
Any other questions from anybody?
Okay.
Okay, and is that timeline that I threw out there, that's what we talked about, right?
It is.
December 18th and then January 30th or 31st?
The week of December 18th, we're probably gonna issue those bid documents out, and I guess just to elaborate on it, in our opinion. The week of Christmas is not gonna be productive for bidders, so it's kind of seems like we need 4 weeks from January 2nd. Get this thing bid, this is a fairly large renovation project, and I think we're gonna need that time. So that's where the January 30th, 31st date kind of came from, it's 4 weeks from January 2nd.
You can do us a favor, Jordan,
I hope so.
just make sure it doesn't run any longer than that, because then we get into that time we talked
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that's important that you didn't talk about is the project contingency. Worth 3.84, but that is the total project of the $28.5 million project. So we have a good contingency of about $500,000 for a $5 million set aside for a $5 million project. So we have a good contingency set aside for that.
Yeah.
Talk about that today.
We did, so, with renovation, we kind of try to set aside about at least 8% for project contingency for a renovation project. New construction, some could argue 3%, but we try to set aside 5%. Right now, we've actually been doing pretty dang well with phase one. I know.
Just best that.
We've tackled a lot of extra work that was needed for phase one, and we're still doing pretty dang good with contingency. So, if you set aside 8% for phase two, you still are looking at about 2.5%, 3% that's set aside for phase one. We're getting close to being fully enclosed with these buildings. It's just, man, I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're going to be doing okay. And by that time, when we're approving the bids, we might be able to make some challenging decisions at that time on how much contingency that we want to keep running with for phase one. Don't want to get us all excited about that, but at that time, we should have our buildings enclosed, and maybe we can do a better assessment of how is this plane going to land for phase one, and can we make some decisions with that information in mind that might help phase two. So I don't want to jinx those things.
No,
it's an opportunity. I think we're going to have an opportunity to re-review where we're at with phase one, and if we need to tackle more for phase two based on
We're sitting about 400, as we talked today, we're sitting about 448,000 for phase one still, that we set aside. That, we're what, 50% you're close to 50% of the project completion.
What,
All the hidden stuff should be taken care of. There shouldn't be any surprises. If there are surprises, and as we talked about it today, then we've messed up in the design development. It'll be the new stuff that we have to do. You know what I mean? You're not finding that you have a crack in your foundation anymore. You're not finding that you have to replace the sewer lines. That stuff's all done. So, the odds of us needing that $400,000 is hopefully small, but, we probably will eat a couple $100,000 of it, I imagine.
I wouldn't wanna move forward with anything
Right.
less than that, that's for sure, yeah.
so current timeline for phase one to be dried in?
To be weather tight. So we've got the high school, the roof is gonna be starting next week for the high school. We've got temp enclosures on our windows. So your roof's gonna be put on in probably 2 weeks starting next Monday. So we're not far in the high school in November. Pretty well dried. We got temporary enclosures on those windows, so I'm just gonna call that weather tight still. So we're looking pretty close. Most. What's that? Did I cheat?
Temporary.
Well, I am cheating on that. The middle school that roof is gonna follow. And that's probably gonna be another 2 weeks to get that done. So that's probably gonna be in the December timeframe. The gym, we should be done with that roof this week, hopefully, but we changed our mind and putting that last panel in to hopefully benefit some of the other trades. We're gonna leave that panel off a little bit longer than I originally wanted to get equipment in there, because equipment access into there is gonna be tricky. So maybe to try to get most of the ductwork up there, fire sprinkler, some of our other MEP items, while we've got good access for lifts to get in there, and then throw that panel. I just haven't decided when the drop dead date is that I wanna throw that panel back in, but I foresee that being. But then the side building is kind of a different story, but we see that being enclosed in December as well.
All right,
I'll move to approve, plan specification, budget estimate for phase two, middle school, high school, building project, is that? I'll second.
been moved and seconded to approve the plan specs and budget estimate for phase two of the middle school, high school building project as presented. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. So now on to action item C, Grantwood AEA 10 board member ballot.
Carol Moss is the only one that's up. Most of you have met Carol before. She was at our board meeting. I recommend the board to use our district vote for Carol Moss.
I'll move that we, innovate for the grant and board member.
Been moved and seconded to approve Carol Mons as our Grantwood AEA 10 board member. But, name on ballot, is there any other discussion? Yeah, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Discussion items, board policy first reading. 452-775 4R1.
It's on our financials for the district. 700 is all about financials. Nope, excuse me. No major changes in it.
Good.
So I recommend that we approve the first reading or through the first week reading. It's just a first reading. 505.5 we've already talked about, so that's taken care of.
FY24 board goals.
We need to a second. This is kind of where we ended up at the last meeting. As far as possible goals Provide support to our staff for students in grades 1, 4, 8, and 11 to achieve goals created by the SIAC committee. And I have those actually linked to our strategic plan now. I don't have them up here, but we have a 5-year plan set out for our goals. Resource management, maintain, update, and communicate 5-year facility plan and the 5-year budget projections. Community engagement, full implementation of IJAG and internships. Survey parents, community members, and business leaders to obtain data on multiple topics. Workforce development, create and implement building culture surveys. Look for creative ways to attract new staff members to district. And look at ways to build your own staff members within the community. Provide high quality professional development over MTSS. Those were the goals we talked about. I'm sorry. Is there anything we want to add? What are people's thoughts on those?
I mean, we spent quite a bit of time with it.
Very, you talk about whether we need goal related behaviors or not.
Yeah, that would be one thing that we didn't do as a SIAC committee group. I would say we focus more so on the academic side. If we want to do that, we can. I think all of our buildings have building goals over behavior.
So just to, it's a discussion item, so hopefully we can bring this back as a action item next month.
Yeah.
So if we were to add a behavior goal, that would be our 5th goal. Is that too much? Or is everybody's thoughts are not an issue or what?
I was thinking the same thing, like how many is too many, you know, you wanna make sure you can achieve goals, you know, some you can achieve them, but you also wanna push yourself to.
I agree, there should be one, I guess, but
Change behavior, other than providing support and what the staff is.
well, that's how we do it, by making sure staff has what they need to help. I mean, that's how we do it here.
So, right,
I don't know how, if we made a behavior goal, how would it be different than what the buildings already have on their own?
But like Kelly just said, he's technically right, if we worded something into workforce development.
well, I was
Student
thinking
success.
student success,
You
yeah.
say that there's provide support to our staff for the students in grades 1, 4, 8, and 11.
Yeah.
It's a metric that's out of our hands other than giving resources to our staff to do so. Falls on a board goal other than making sure that they have the resources.
Okay. Thoughts? I mean, it is, Kelly's right, it is there, I just. If you change wording, you almost have to change it, to start listening to these. In this way that it's worded down, it's providing support for everything.
That, and I think it's important to remember, every building that's been here has had a behavior goal so far. So I think we're addressing it. I think if you make a whole nother goal, it's one. At what point do you goal yourself out? Like you just can't keep track, you can't. it's just not attainable, not able to do so many things, so.
You can't change personal behavior. So you have the goals that you're trying to achieve, but you're not going to take and change human nature and their behavior. You know, you can try, but you can't go out and grab them and say, you know, this is it. So it's a goal that is something that, you know, you might think it in your head, but it's not an achievable goal to say, hey, we aren't going to have any problems.
I would disagree that we can't change behaviors. I think it's hard. I think I see kids daily learn. If that's the case, then look at your own kids. If you can't change personal behavior, they would act the same way when they're in first grade as what they do when they're in 12th grade. And that doesn't happen. So to say you can't change personal behaviors, I don't agree with, because I think you can. And I think that happens through teaching. Now, do we have some students who are very challenging? Yes. But it's our job as a district to try to teach them the skills to be able to be successful when they leave the building. So I think we have to, as a board, we have to be very, very careful saying that you can't change personal behaviors, because then we're really limiting our students, which isn't fair to our kids. I wouldn't want somebody to limit the abilities of what my student can do or my son can do. So I understand it's very hard to change some personal behaviors, but it's our job as a district to teach them the skills to be able to try to be successful. It's even in our mission statement, provide the resources for our students to lead lives of purpose. So I understand what you're saying, but I also disagree.
I might have not said it exactly correctly, but I cannot take it, like I said, you know.
Right, no, we just have to teach skills. Yep, we have to continue to work to teach skills for students. So, yeah, but I guess if my recommendation is we would stay with the 4 that are presented. Sorry. And bring that to our next board.
Any other discussion? All right. On to superintendent goals.
My goal is a carryover from last year, finish and implement 5-year strategic plan. And then it was brought up at the last board meeting, visit at least 1 building and multiple classrooms weekly. And that's something I need to do anyways. And something I can keep track of. Those were the 2 main items that were brought up at the last board meeting. So I have a peers goal written for it, but that's something that's, I don't think we need to go into a closed session to talk about, here's what my peers goal is, here's how it fits into my evaluation. Here's the goals I'm gonna have, and then the next time in January, February, we'll have a work session. Or we'll have it in the agenda just to go into closed session to talk about a mid-year review, which we have never done.
Sorry. Okay. Upcoming events, next board meeting is December 13th. Here at central office, we will have a work session before at 6, the meeting will be at 7, correct, Willie?
Correct.
All right. And then IASB convention is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 15th, 16th, 17th.
I believe we're only scheduled to go the 15th and 16th. Yeah, 17th. Yeah. So those are the people that I have attending right now. I have offered to the new board members, as I said earlier, but I really tried to make them understand it's definitely a no pressure thing. So just because it's the turnaround so quick.
Try to get Eric to go, please.
Last hurrah. So okay.
Yep, so to Kelly, Sonia, and Eric, hopefully you can all make it to the next meeting. Thank you for your service. And You gotta be here you have to be here next meeting, you have to pass the torch. I'll have torches.
That, and I don't know if you guys remember, we planned the December meeting for a work session for the future planning, so we had conversations from this group and conversations from our new board to be able to have those discussions. Because they are being invited to that also.
At 6 o'clock.
At the 6 o'clock one, yep, yep.
Who took care?
Second.
Been moved and seconded